All right, so today we've got TAM Lab number 10, and I'm going to be doing a vROps demo of how to basically set it up, a new vROps environment that I just deployed yesterday, um, essentially to provide access for an application team, right? So I get that question a lot from customers. They ask, we have vROps, how do we configure it or set it up so this one specific application team that only owns, this handful of VMs or infrastructure, how do we give them access into vROps so they can only see those things and only the dashboards that we want them to see, right? So I feel like that's a pretty common ask from customers around vROps. So there's a couple blogs out there that talk about it. And I'm probably going to write another one here that kind of encapsulates everything we're going to do today. So, but I just wanted to show everybody, we should be able to do this in an hour or less, so it's not too heavy, and it should be good. So there was going to be another TAM presenting today, and he had to cancel because of a customer conflict. So I'm scrambling here, so hopefully this goes well. But with that, let me close out of the PowerPoint here. All right, so if we go over to, let's see, my lab here. So like I said, I deployed a brand new vROps single appliance yesterday, and I connected it to my vCenter. And other than that, I haven't done anything. So I'm going to log into that first of all here. And I haven't configured it for Active Directory access or anything like that. So I'm just going to log in as admin. And by the way, if anyone has comments or feedback regarding what I'm doing today or things you've done that work better, chime in, right? This is meant to be interactive. So here we are within vROps. Like I said, I didn't configure anything, so we're still getting the little notification here about the currency that I haven't set up. But I did configure my two vCenters, and that's basically all I've done. So I do have data in here because I wanted you to see, actual metrics for objects and things like that. But aside from that, I haven't done anything. So,
Hey, Steve, I do have a question for you out of the gate.
sure.
Is this what you're showing us? Are there any versions that this is limited in, or is this a 7.0 only 7.0 only function?
So what I'm going to be outlining is not version specific. They did make some good enhancements with 7.0, and I can show that. In fact, thank you for bringing that up, because with 7.0, they created the ability to essentially share like a link to a dashboard, and you don't have to do anything beyond that, right? So if I go into dashboards, let's look at, we'll just do a utilization overview, right? So if I want to share this, I can click this button right here in the top right, and I got some options. So I can just have a URL, right? And then you copy the link and send it out. It doesn't require any login whatsoever, which is great. You can have it expire, or you can send it in an email. You can actually embed it, like if you had a SharePoint site or something like that. And then this group option is more the traditional method where you're sharing it with an actual group. So I've presented this to my customers. They like it. However, they want to have like long-term access for their application teams to be able to get in and not only see dashboards, but also drill down into the environment. So that's why I'm kind of bypassing all this. But again, this is great, and it's new with 7.0. But what I'll be doing is I'll be creating a custom role so they have permissions to just see certain components of the user interface and that sort of stuff. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's good. That's good. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So where was I? Let's see. Okay, so if we go over to vCenter here, I set up some dummy VMs in my environment. They don't have any operating system. They're just like basically VM shells, and they're up and running, right? So the naming convention here is the first three characters indicate the operating system. So these are Windows. And then the next three characters are the environment. So dev, test, prod. And then after that, like an application name. So these are essentially their fake Exchange servers, right? And we've got 2 for dev, 2 for test, and 3 for prod, just to simulate maybe an Exchange environment on-prem with a customer, right? So I did set that up last night. So the way I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to leverage vSphere tags to create custom groups within vROps. I could do it based off of the name here since it is consistent. But a lot of times I find that customers are not consistent, and sometimes they'll stray from that naming convention, and then things break and we don't have those VMs included in the dynamic groups that we set up in vROPS. We could also do it by folder here. So if I created more folders like for dev, test, and prod and split it out that way, I could specify in vROPS that these VMs within these folders are they belong to these custom groups, right? So I like doing it by tags because I feel like it's more dynamic and a little bit more automatable, if that's a word. So I'm going to go in here to vCenter and tags and custom attributes. I'm going to set up 2 tag categories. So a tag category is exactly what it sounds like, right? You have tags within that. So I'm going to set up one for application, and then we have to set up, is it a one-to-one relationship? So if I specify this is applicable for, let's say, VMs, can a VM have more than one application server and SharePoint, for instance, or something like that? So I will allow that, right? So I'll do that. And then I'm going to set up another one for environment. And we'll just tie that, well, we'll do all objects for that one. Now this one should be one-to-one, right? Because you're not going to have a VM, for instance, that's both prod and dev, or you shouldn't. I won't say that's always the case, but you shouldn't have that, right? So I've set up my 2 tag categories. Are you guys still seeing my screen? Is it moving or did it freeze? I just want to make sure.
Moving.
Yeah, it's definitely moving around.
Okay, great. So now I'm going to add some tags here. So let's call this dev, and we're going to apply this for the environment, right? And then I'll do test, and I'll do prod. Okay, and then I'm going to create now an application tag. So we'll just say exchange. And application's already there. But you could do anything here, right? You could do SharePoint, or you could do Active Directory or something like that, right? Whatever you want. And this is how I typically tell my customers to start leveraging tags. If they try to like plan everything out, they get nowhere, right? But just start using them, and then you'll see how it makes sense and how you want to use them, right? So now that we've got our tags, let's go over to our VMs here, and we're going to actually tag these. So they're all going to be Exchange. So you can do multiple at a time here. So we're going to select them all, right click and assign tags. And these are all Exchange VMs. So now those are all tagged with Exchange. The 2 dev ones, I'm going to tag those as dev. The 3 prod will be prod. And then test, of course, is test. Okay, so we're all tagged up here. I wanted to do that right off the bat because it's going to take a couple minutes for vROPS to see those, right? On the regular 5-minute collection cycle, it won't know that they're tagged yet until it does the next collection. But if we click on one of our VMs here and scroll down, we should see that these have tags, right? So what's great about tags is you can come into the tags section here, and let's say I want to see all the Exchange. I want to see the prod, anything in my prod environment. And there's the 3 VMs, right? Or whatever we've tagged. So our tags are set up. Next step, the way I'm going to do this in vROPS is I'm going to tie the permissions and what we want to share back to an Active Directory group. So I'm going to go into my domain controller and set up some groups and users real quick here. Right, to simulate in a customer environment, they're likely going to have AD groups for Exchange admins, for instance. So let's go into AD. And let's create a group. First of all, I'm going to create vROps admins. And then I'm going to create a Exchange admins. So I've got my two groups, and let's create a couple test users as well, and we'll put them in there. So we'll say vROps admin, whatever, vROps admin. Give it the usual VMware one bang password. Okay. And we'll do another one for Exchange admin. It's just so we can test later, right? Okay. And in our vROps admins, we should have vROps admin. And in the Exchange admins, we'll add the Exchange admin. These would likely already be set up, right, within your customer environment, at least the application ones. Okay, so we're good with AD. So let me log out of here. Now let's go back to vROps, and I'm going to go into administration, and I'm going to actually connect this to Active Directory now. So we'll go into administration, access, authentication sources, and you'll see I don't have anything set up. So we'll do a plus sign. Call this Tilkens, it's my domain name. This is going to be Active Directory, Tilkens.local, and I'm just going to use the domain admin. Not a best practice, but lab. Hopefully that works. Okay. We'll click OK. So we've got that set up. And let's see. Next thing I'm going to do, so I need to create, if we go into environment here, I need to create custom groups for these Exchange environments that we've set up. But before I do that, I want to set up a new group type here. So you see these are all group types. I'm going to create one just for Exchange. So if we go into administration and configuration group types, we'll create Exchange environments or environment. Now if we come back into here, we should see, is it there or am I not seeing it? Do a refresh. Yeah, it's here. I just don't have any custom groups yet. So let's create some custom groups. So I'm going to name this one Exchange Production, and we're going to assign it that group type that we just created. So this is an Exchange environment. Here's the power of custom groups, right? You can assign specific policies. I'm just going to assign the default one that we're using for everything. But this is where you could get in and tweak things for, you know, what alerts you're going to be notified on, what metrics you're collecting, how often you're collecting, all sorts of stuff. So that's what's great about policies. We want this to be a dynamic group, so we're always going to keep it up to date. That way, if we have a new VM in vCenter and we tag it, it's automatically going to be populated in this custom group. And we want to define this group based off of virtual machines, virtual machine tags. So now we're going to say the property of the virtual machine. Do a quick filter for tag, vSphere tag. Okay, now we see the tags in here, so it's had enough time to collect some stuff in here. So what you're going to want to do though is, because in vROps, let me cancel. Well, I'll show you in a sec here. I'm going to do a contains, And I'm going to do, let's see, application dash exchange. And if we click preview, we can see everything that's in there, right? So this has all of our Exchange VMs because I haven't added another section yet for the environment type. Now, the reason I did contains is because all the tags associated with a VM show up as the tag property in vROps. So if it has multiple tags, let's say you also had it tagged with like a VM owner, for instance, that's going to show up in the string. So it's really a string. That's why I always have to do contains. Otherwise, it'll be, it won't include what we want. And it also matters the order in which you tagged, because if you look at, let's do another one here, properties, tag, you'll see it has them in a particular order, right? So here's a VM that has a VM patch cycle defined. So it just, they're strings, just basically know that, right? So here we're going to want to do environment dash PRD. And now we should have just the 3 prod ones, right? And again, this is dynamic, so if we tag any other VMs in vCenter with these 2 tags, it's going to be a part of this group. So that's one. I'm going to set up 2 more for test and dev. I don't have to do this, but I'm going to show you how you can link it to a dashboard dropdown, and then when they go into a dashboard, they can pick which environment they want to look at. Anyone have any questions or comments while I'm doing some legwork here? Hopefully you can still hear me.
You did remember to push record, right?
Yeah. Oh, thank God for that. What was the second one? Oh, environment. And we're doing test, so we should have 2 here. Yep. And then I'll do the 3rd one for dev. All right, so there's our 2 dev VMs as well. All right, so we've got our 3 custom groups. And if you'll notice here, if we go to any of them, we should have some health. You know, it's going to take a couple minutes to start collecting metrics and all that for it, but you can see we've got health, risk, efficiency, and all that for this specific custom group that we've created. So now that we've got those defined, let's go into our access here, and we're going to create a custom role for the Exchange team. So if we go to access control, roles, I'm going to create Exchange. And this is where we're going to define what they can and can't see and what objects they have access to. So we have our new role here. We're going to go into permissions. And there's a blog out there. I forget who wrote it, but I took some screenshots here because I just did this with my customers. So what we want is under administration. We want to give management and view collector groups, and then log in interactively. So this will give them the ability to actually log into vROps, right? And then under alerts, because I want this application team to see any alerts associated with their environment or their VMs, I'm going to give them read access. I'm not giving them the ability to delete alerts or edit alerts or anything like that. We can certainly do that, but for now it's just going to be read-only access. And then they can view the alerts page. And then under dashboards, we're going to give them the ability to view the dashboards list. And we want them to see the view dashboards page, right? As well as they need to render views, because views are what a lot of times make up dashboards as a widget, right? So they need that ability. And then under environment, because we want to give them the access to drill down into their VMs and look at metrics and all that good stuff, the rich data, we're going to go in here and give them almost everything. We don't want them to have any actions, so they're not going to be able to delete VMs, power them off, anything like that. So we'll take that away. We're going to take away the alerts notes, so they can't add any notes to the alerts. Under alerts management, they can't cancel, delete, manage, or suspend, but they can view all the alerts. We're not giving them any ability to do application management, which is basically like create applications. These are custom applications. Custom groups management, they can just read. And then they can see all the details. They can see everything on the environments page. They can drill down into the inventory tree. They can see reports. Troubleshooting, I'm taking away the metric favorites so they can't create favorites or delete them. This is when you're looking at all metrics, you can kind of bundle the metrics you like. I suppose we could give them that, but I'm going to take it away for now. Dynamic actions, I left that checked, but we don't have any of those set up anyways, so that's fine for now. And then we'll uncheck those two as well. Everything else is view. So that should do it. So click update. And we've got our custom role. So now what we need to do is import those AD groups. So if we come into user groups, we've set up our connection to AD. We're going to click this little button here to import. So I'm going to import two groups. It's going to be the vROps admin. There's that. And this group is really going to have administrator access to everything, right? So we're going to assign that role to the group, and we're going to give them access to everything. Yes, they're just warning us that it's going to be, they're going to have, admin rights over everything. And then I'm going to do the exchange. There's my exchange admins. Click next. Here, I'm just going to give them the new role that we've set up for exchange. We're going to assign it to the group, but I don't want to give them access to everything. I just want to give them access to those custom groups, which we've defined here, these 3 custom groups. And we want it to propagate. That way they can see the things below it, or, and that's pretty much it. So we'll click finish. And the only other thing we need to do now is under dashboard management. Once you set this up, you basically need to unshare all the dashboards from the everyone group, and then share it, the specific ones you want to share with the groups that we've created. So we go into share dashboards. You'll see the everyone group has 28 dashboards shared. We want to remove those, but before we remove them, I'm going to add them all over to the vROps admins. And I've had issues doing all of them at once. Like if I try to do this, I'll see if it works today. Oh, it worked today. Okay. So we've given anyone that's going to log in as a vROps admin essentially the same access that you would see as an administrator, or logging in as everyone group. So now that they've got those defined, I'm going to come in here to the everyone group and unshare all these. And I'm also going to share, well, we'll create a custom dashboard for the Exchange team. So we'll click Save. Or you know what, I'll share There's a good one. If we go to dashboards, where is it? I think it's VM utilization is a nice one. Or let's do VM configuration. So no, that's not a good one. Sure, we'll do this one. So we'll share this VM utilization dashboard with the Exchange team, but they should only see their VMs in this list because that's all they have access to. So I can do it right from here. I'm going to share that with a group, Exchange admins, include, and that's it. That's kind of a shortcut to going here, manage dashboards, share dashboards. And now you see the Exchange admins team has just this one dashboard shared. So that's it. So let me log out. And first off, I'm going to log in as the vROps admin just to make sure that they have access to everything. Which looks good. So I can see all the dashboards or the 28 that we've shared. Everything looks fine. We've got access to the entire environment here if we drill down. Looks good. Let me log out as this user, and I'm going to log in as the Exchange admin. All right. So you'll notice they don't see the home page. They don't see the administration page. Under dashboards, they see the all dashboards drop-down list with just access to the one dashboard that we've shared with them, right? Which is what we're looking at here. And you'll notice this list of VMs here only shows the VMs that they've got access to. So they can't see the entire environment. If we go to alerts, they'll be able to see any alerts that pertain to their VMs. We don't have any, so it's looking pretty empty. But they can also read the alert definitions, which is important because if there was an alert for one of their VMs and they click on it without the ability to read the alert definition, it wouldn't really tell them anything, right? And then if we go to environment, we can drill down into hosts and clusters. And again, we just see these VMs. And they have the ability to look at all metrics, right? We've just completely locked them out of everything else. And what's great is now it's dynamic. So if we go back into vCenter, add another VM, and just tag it appropriately, it's going to show up for them. So you could build that into like VRA, for instance, if you had like a SQL Server blueprint, just automatically tag it as it gets deployed as SQL, and then the SQL team would automatically get access to it in vROps. So that's basically it. I want to show you one other thing here. So let me log out and log in as admin locally. It's usually a best practice to do all your dashboard creation under like one user. I typically just do it under admin, but you can create a separate user and give access to that. That way you're sharing all your dashboards from a single kind of source. So let's create a clone of a dashboard. Are you guys still seeing my screen? Is it moving?
Yeah, it sure is, Steve.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to clone this VM utilization dashboard. That's the one that we gave them access to. And we'll call it, I usually do it custom, just so I know that this is something I've created custom. We'll call it Exchange VM dashboard utilization. So we'll click OK. Now if I go into edit this, I'm going to add an object list up here. And I'm going to edit that. And what I want it to show is it object types? Yes. So I want this to show the 3 objects, custom objects that we've defined, and because we created that group, it's going to show up in a nice pick list here. So we'll click Save, and I want to select auto select on first row. So you can see the 3 environments, and then I need to create an interaction between this object list and the VMs list below it. So if I drag this down here, not going? Am I doing it the wrong way? There we go. So now we've created that interaction. We'll click Save. Oh, I gotta go back into Edit. Let's give this a better name. So we'll say choose Exchange Environment. Click Save. And then I also need to fix this so it's a child of the other object list. So we'll click Save and Save. And now, again, I'm logged in as admin, but if I go to that new dashboard, oh, and I could also group this. Let me show you that real quick. So if we go to Actions, Manage Dashboards, and then Manage Dashboard Groups, we can create, if we wanted to give a bunch of different dashboards to just the Exchange team, we could do something like Exchange, right? Now we have a folder for Exchange, and if I can find that new dashboard that we just created, I'll drag it into that folder. So now when I'm in my dashboards, it looks a little cleaner, right? So if I go to that, here you can see now I'm looking at just my production VMs down here. If I click development, it should update for just the development, and test, just test. And this will give them the ability to choose an environment, then pick the VM, and then they're going to see things about the VM, right? So what is it configured as, and then some high-level performance information. So the last step would be to share this with the Exchange team, and then I should be done. So I can log out and log back in as that Exchange admin. Was it admin? EXCH admin? Oh, I forgot the drop down here. So the domain. And now they should see the other dashboard here. So if they click on this, they can get to their VMs. And what's great about this is now they can click on the name of this VM if they wanted to drill down into it. And because we gave them access into the environment, it can take them directly into that, and they can start doing some more troubleshooting, looking at, performance, utilization, things like that. And also, if we were to install the EPOPs agent, there's a plugin for Exchange specifically, and it comes with some additional dashboards for Exchange. We could give them those dashboards. There would be another step we'd have to do where we modify the custom group to include those EPOPs agents because they're coming from a different adapter pack or different solution, whereas all this data right now is coming from the vSphere adapter pack. So we see VM metrics. The agent doesn't care. It could be a physical VM, or it could be a physical system, or it could be a VM. So it's a little different. We'd have to give them access to those VMs and those agent objects. But then they would see a lot more metrics around, Exchange specific things like how many transactions per second, or OWA instance, and whatever Exchange stuff there is. So that was pretty much it. Did anybody have any questions? And I will share this, so we see the permissions that we need. And again, if you want to give them more control and the ability to edit alerts, for instance, or close alerts and things like that, we can certainly do that. You just have to change, what they're seeing. That was pretty much it. That's all I wanted to show because that's a common question I get from customers. So, like I said, I'm probably going to be doing a blog about this here in a couple days, and I'll send that out so folks can just send that to their customers, and it'll be a good resource, hopefully.
Right on. You know, Steve, one of the questions I have for you is that's quite a bit of work there, right? Getting it all set up, all the boxes, knowing your customers' demands, what they want to do, right? One of the questions I have for you, and I don't know if you know this or not, but with vRealize in general, how likely are those settings to carry from update or version to version without having to do a lot of rework or problems?
So everything we've done should carry just fine, because we haven't modified any of the default content, and that's where you typically get into challenges when you do upgrades, because you have the ability to reset some of that default content when you do the upgrade. But we've created a custom role, we've created custom groups, we've created custom dashboards. We didn't modify any of the defaults, so everything should, in theory, be fine as you do upgrades. And to your comment about it is a lot of work to set up initially. Let me log out here real quick. So let's say we've done all this work. I'll log in back in as admin here. And now we want to do the same thing for the SQL team, for instance, right? Well, what would we have to do? Well, we'd have to go back into vCenter and we'd have to define our tags and set all those up and tag our VMs appropriately. From a Active Directory connection, we've already got that. We can clone the role that we did, right? So we created an Exchange role. All we have to do is clone that, say SQL. They've got the same permissions now. And when we import our groups from AD, it would be like a SQL group. That's where we would define, what's a default group? Backup. And our backup group in AD. Let's pretend this was our SQL group. We've got our new role for SQL. And we would have to come in and do our custom groups before we got to this point, right? So where we dynamically assign membership based off the tags. So it's a little less work the second time around. Let me show you real quick the other options we have for creating the custom groups. So rather than, let's say, we'll do Exchange. Gosh, I can't spell. Okay. Folder example. So here we're going to do the same thing. Keep it up to date, but instead of using tags this time, I'll show you how you would do it with a folder. The folder structure within vSphere. So it's still a property. And if we do filter by folder, vSphere folder and it sees all the folder structure within vCenter now. So if we click Exchange, we should see all of those VMs that are in that Exchange folder, right? So that's one way to do it. But you got to be disciplined enough to make sure that that folder structure is consistent and it doesn't change. Like if you remove a VM from inventory and re-add it, although that would be the same with tags probably too, you would lose that metadata. The other option would be, rather than the folder, let's maybe do it by name. So if we come into, where is it? I think it's just name. This is going to be your VM name, and we could do a contains, and we could do exch. Let's see if that works. Yeah. So, oh great. Assuming you have the proper naming convention and you're using that consistently, that would work, right? If you remove this VM from inventory and re-added it, because the name would be the same. So you could make this way more dynamic to say Exchange, PRD Exchange, and these are just your production Exchange. Oh, I spelled it wrong. So here's our 3 production Exchange ones. So they're pretty powerful and pretty dynamic. So you can create custom groups based off of a lot of different properties, or you can do metrics even. So pretty dynamic. Any other thoughts or questions or feedback? Any other use cases you've seen from your customers that you get a lot of questions around? Maybe we got a couple more minutes. We could just kind of float around and do whatever. Alrighty. Well, I'll give you back 15 minutes then. If no one has anything else.
Steve, just one thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Are you planning on doing any other vROps ones? Because I certainly could take benefit of a session based just around policies, if that's something that can be fit into the agenda going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything planned at this point, so we have, I think, three or four more TAM labs scheduled here coming up. So Matt is going to be doing one next week on home labs. Yeah. And basically everything you need to know. And then we've got a couple SRM and replication ones after that. And I think we were going to do a nested home lab one after that. But yeah, we could definitely put it on the agenda.
That would be great. I mean, certainly for me, I don't know about how anyone else feels about that, but policies is something that I'd like to get my head around. And certainly my customers have a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. It's one of those things where it's a lot to kind of take in, and there's a lot of things you can do with policies, and a lot of times customers just stay away from it. But really, there's a lot of power in having custom policies for, let's say, Exchange or maybe dev and test. You don't want to get alerts for dev and test because it's a mess in there anyways, right? But production, absolutely. You definitely do. So it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we could do that.
Lovely. Thank you. Cheers.
Sure. I'll put it on the list. And I have noticed that they've got some out-of-the-box ones now too, which I think you could probably clone and start making policies if it's your own custom ones. The one thing I will mention is anything I do that's custom in vROps, I always have a standard naming convention, so I just start it with custom, or that way it's just easy to find, right? So if I do custom views, for instance, you can just come in and do a quick filter for custom, and you would see anything you've done custom. That's interesting. There's a couple out-of-the-box ones. Oh, custom data center, that's why. You can also filter by the owner of these things. So that's why if you use a specific owner for like actual content within vROps, so like dashboards, views, reports, things like that, you build it all under one particular user, you can sort by that particular user and find anything you've done custom as well. So that's a handy way to do it. That's all I got. So reach out if you have any questions. Again, I'll post the Word doc with the permissions in the TAM Lab SharePoint site when I post the session here. So that'll be an attachment, and you can have access to that. But again, I'll probably be blogging about this in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. But with that, I'll end it here unless there's anything else.
Good job, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good week.
Thanks, Steve.
Take care.